Recording is on.
Welcome to Monday, May 17th, DXbiz call, starting at 1500 UTC time. So I guess big picture, we're going to try to maybe adjust, and I don't know what the answer is. We're going to try to adjust this call in combination with a few other priorities of DXDAO, which as DX kind of biz dev opportunities pick up, I'm going to be focused on it more, and we're going to need other people to focus on it more. Nathan has a proposal out there too to really focus on biz dev things, and so there's a lot to do, and we're trying to figure out what the best way to prioritize and allocate resources towards this growing initiative. And this call historically has been a good call for newcomers to show up at, get a sense of DXDAO, hear about a bunch of different things, sometimes projects presenting new ideas related to either DX Ventures or also partnerships with DXDAO. And and then it's a great place where we've had new member intros, so just to kick things off, I think Melanie may have a couple people that are new that would like to be introduced. Is that correct?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Before we kick off the biz dev agenda, we have a new contributor introduction. I'd like to introduce Caden. I think he should be on the call. Hi. And he just is going to tell a little bit about himself and about areas he feels like he can contribute at DXDAO.
Yeah, thanks, Melanie. So I'm Caden, and so I've been following Ethereum and DeFi and DXDAO for some time now, and I've been wanting to work for a crypto company for about as long. So really excited for this opportunity. So I've previously worked at a few early stage startups I was working on with friends. One of them was a college search company called College One. Another one was a food subscription startup called Boston Cookeria. But my main experience comes from when I was working at Dell Technologies. I was doing marketing and writing. And while I was there, I edited a bunch of technical articles. I wrote tweets, did a bit of SEO on WordPress, and also analyzed paid marketing expenditure on Facebook and Google Ads. So, and the way I found out about DXDAO was actually when I was researching. So I was using PredictIt. It's the online prediction market betting platform. Was betting on the 2020 elections, and so I was like, oh wow, there's all these fees on PredictIt. It's 15% is the fees, the total fees, because it's 10% of all your profits that you make. And then on top of that, if you want to take your money out, they charge you 5%. So kind of lock you in there. So I found out about both Polymarket and Omen when I was researching, okay, what other alternatives do I have? And, I hate to admit it, but I ended up going with Polymarket because they were the ones that had the markets I was looking for. But there are a lot of advantages to Omen, the underlying technology of Omen that makes it more decentralized. And I think if with the right marketing, with the right markets on Omen is well positioned to take on Polymarket and PredictIt. Which is a huge market because PredictIt, they have all sorts of regulations they have to meet where they can only have a certain number of users. And so when the betting was happening in the 2020 elections, they were having problems where they would meet those caps, which is about 10,000 users. They had more than 10,000 people wanting to bet. And they also have betting limits. That's another thing where Omen has an advantage because you can only bet $850 on each market on PredictIt. So basically, how I would like to contribute is help with marketing for Omen, and work together as much as I can to basically let Omen live up to what I see as its potential to take on these competitors in the space and provide a decentralized betting platform where you don't have these high fees, and even you have all the other advantages that come along with that too.
Awesome.
So
that's great, Hayden. And how did you hear about DXDAO? How were you kind of introduced to the community?
Well, I first found out about it online, but I was at an Ethereum meetup, and so I'm in Houston, so I went to one here, and I met John, and he introduced me, which I really appreciate, by the way.
Of course, yeah. We had our first meetup since pre-COVID, and other than people who I had already kind of been close with, Caden was the only person who knew about DXDAO. And not only did he know about DXDAO, he knew about Omen and Polymarket and Swapper and a lot of the stuff going on. So that was pretty cool to see, and I'm glad that he's jumping in here. The timing seemed to work out pretty well. So yeah, welcome, Caden. Great to have you here.
Yeah, definitely. Great to have you. And I think that's the only new contributor introduction we have, so we can transition right into the agenda.
Great, thanks. Welcome, Caden. Welcome to the permissionless decentralized world. So, yeah, what I was mentioning just before about like what this call could be is as there are more and more specific situations around like either partnerships or campaigns or things that DXDAO is trying to achieve, that are like, biz dev opportunities going on in the background. There's an idea to have probably a separate meeting once a week, like later in the week, that is really anyone that's a stakeholder in these DX business opportunities will be where we like dive in and we actually go through all of the opportunities that exist, prioritize those, and then like come up with strategies on like how to tackle those and which ones to go after and like what the strategy is. And then the idea would be to take, the most important pieces of information and most relevant opportunities and almost present them to this wider public group, which is this, public recorded call. So to give people a sense, there'll be some sensitive, like strategic things that are going on, but like whatever can be presented to this like bigger public group, we use like part of this Monday call to like present those opportunities. And so like one like example is like the ongoing negotiations or like the opportunity with XDAI chain and their team there and the XDAI community. And so with Omen, Omen farming and guilds coming, and then also with Swapper farming coming, there is an apparent, an imminent opportunity to, work with the XDAI community to get like stake capital into Swapper pools, and then also get stake as rewards for farming certain pools on XDAI. And so we've been there's been some, Chris and I introduced kind of the idea in the public XDAI forum, and there was some like conversation back and forth with the community and also their team to kind of try to figure out what this initial working together of the two communities could look like. And so I think we've narrowed it down to an opportunity where there, for XDAI community, there's always a big focus on stake tokens. So putting some stake, like concentrating on some stake pools for Swapper, and then giving rewards in stake, and then DXDAO also giving rewards in a token that it can give rewards in at this point, to grow certain pairs on Swapper. And so I think that main pool that we'd focus on initially would be the stake WETH pool, which is the pool that on XDAI that DXDAO is actually, has acquired stake and is already kicking off that pool with its own capital. And so if we focus on that pool and really grow that one out, that would become like a really important pool for the stake community. And so that is, that's one of the, main opportunities right now. Also with Swapper, we have an upcoming farming, we have a farming plan that DXDAO is putting together to launch when we launch farming on Swapper. And Chris has been looking after that. I don't know if if you want to give a brief overview, but what we've been looking for is another token pair it would be a key token to create rewards for that pool. And at this point, what we've thought about is the work token, which is Opolis's token that's running all on XDAI. It's a governance token in the Opolis system. DXDAO through DX Ventures has a connection to Opolis, and it will most likely or is going to receive a number of work tokens as well. And there's about 3,000 or people or more on XDAI that already have work token, yet there is no good pool on XDAI for work token yet. And so it gives DXDAO the opportunity to really capture that pool on XDAI. And so a farming reward around that pool would be a pretty good opportunity. And so we're factoring in that into the upcoming program. And it might be a little bit of a race versus, some of the other DEXs out there and things like that. But I think we could really have a successful pool with that token. I don't know if anyone has any comments or questions about like Swapper, or has any ideas for other projects or farming situations for like upcoming Swapper campaigns and things. If there's any other ideas that we might be missing out there that could be also good.
I just had a question, actually. Do we know if we want to do all of the work tokens in the pool, or if we also want to do any sort of stake in governance to make DXDAO a member of a voting member of the Opolis Commons as well, as like a completely separate thing that might need like a much smaller allocation of tokens? Just wondering if that's something. I just wanted to put that out there and keep that on people's like minds as they plan for the pool.
Yeah, that's a great point. So and Tammy had written this up in like the forum thread, if you followed along the whole thing, is like, part of DX Ventures grant investment into Opolis is like to participate in the governance and actually get Opolis to like build the things that DXDAO needs in addition to what they're also doing, right? And part of that is using work token to participate in that governance. This actual work WETH pool, which is like separately a pool that the space is probably going to want and needs, like may not even need any of DXDAO's work tokens to go into it. Actually, initially, like we were just talking about creating an incentive to for the public to build that pool up. Whether or not DXDAO puts its own work tokens into that pool and its own capital is another decision which we should make. And it does make sense to potentially put some of our own work tokens in the pool, but it's not 100% necessary. And so we could, that's a good idea. Like maybe half of work tokens go into the pool and the other half is used for governance. So that's still an open discussion. And if anyone has any thoughts about it, so in general with this grant, DXDAO is going to receive some work tokens up front, but there is a process to like eventually receive more work tokens over time too. So DXDAO will continue to get more and more work tokens. And so, you know, using the ones that you initially get, like for whatever we think is best, is can be decided.
Sorry to add something, but it's not possible to stake the. You know, that this is the reason why other projects do, like you can stake like liquidity pool token, because then the liquidity is building up, and yeah, and it's like, yeah, it's just, I think it's more about Opolis, you know, they governments, if you have your work token in the LP, you can't vote, I guess. And also they can change this. Oh.
Yeah. So at this point, that's a good point. Like it's like an inherent problem for most projects in the space where like they want liquidity pools. Sometimes projects kick it off themselves. Sometimes they wait for the community to do it. In this case, Opolis doesn't have anything to do with liquidity pools. They're actually not allowed to. So if the community creates a pool for work token, once that's up and running, and like, let's say lots and lots of work holders have, you know, their work in a liquidity pool and have LP tokens, theoretically that, you know, Opolis in the future could, you know, add that as a allowance for governance as well. So it's always, you can always, I don't know if they want to touch LP tokens, but if like a majority of their governance tokens were in LP pools, you would think that they would want to hear their voice and allow those people to vote as well. So that's something that they could, I guess, add in the longer term. But like, well, they haven't done it yet because the LP tokens don't exist. No one has them, so they haven't had to make that decision.
But the other thing is, you know, the idea in the tokenomics somehow is that you stake your token and then you're not getting diluted. Because there is some, yeah, the emission is like, it's, if it's a success, then the emission is not high, not quite high, but there is some considerable emission. So I just think if I would hold like work token, if you stake it in an LP, you can't stake it with Opolis, so you get like diluted out because you are in the liquidity pool. But this is for everyone else to consider who is in this position, because I don't have any work token. But I just think that this normally, if you the staking, you get incentive by getting more token if you stake, just normal, because this is how the tokenomics work somehow. This is like in the papers. But then if you use your work token in a pool, you risk like impermanent loss and you don't get any work token. So I think it's a bad deal, but yeah.
Yeah, we can think about like governance and how like we could give feedback to Opolis since we're, you know, a big participant now. But in the near term, like unless people think it's not a good idea, I think you know, incentivizing a work weth pool on Swapper is, with our upcoming launch of farming and our campaign, kind of makes sense. And but we can obviously.
Yeah, I think too, but it's just that I don't know if the public is willing to put in their token, you know. But yeah, maybe I think you get token too as a personal, because you're using the system.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, so users of the system did end up getting, like, that's like there's over 3,000 people that I believe received work tokens via the initial distribution. And so there's a lot of people out there that, especially if there's an incentive, a farming incentive on Swapper, I think would probably put work tokens into a pool.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. And just mostly kind of thinking about Swapper beta launch and the farming platform and how it will be like a very important kind of cool feature that we want to showcase. So I think having the DXD ETH pool, WETH pools is important, but I think having just other pools is also great. So I think we want to figure out how we can get others to launch campaigns on Swapper, right? Because then we don't have to spend DXDAO's funds, and that's kind of the beauty of the Swapper farming system. But I do think we, in the initial launch phase, should be doing that, and I can't really think of anyone that would be better than Work. So I think this is a good one. In terms of like amounts, I guess we did put numbers on the DXD WETH pool, but I hadn't thought about this, but I don't know how big the pool should be or what size liquidity we should target, and whether we should just do WETH rewards or DXD rewards too.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, there is no pool, so like a decent we don't have a target that we're trying to beat, right? So a target, like a sizable pool that like makes trading a regular amount like reasonable would be ideal. There are
why? So sorry, maybe I missed it, but we didn't ask Work if they can put Work aside for farming in Swapper, or they're not allowed to.
I don't think. Yeah,
then they would use our system, and that's how it's intended.
Yeah, at this point, Opolis won't have anything to do with any of the liquidity pools or farming.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we could, in a way, we could, with our Swapper, we could, our Work token, we could use them for this.
As rewards?
Yes. Yeah, we will lose them, but I don't know, it's just an idea. Then we somehow we pay like for the farming like Work Opolis would do, because they also would do, I guess they would also use Work token for this, and not like DXD or ETH. But yeah, it's just an idea. Maybe it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, well, to Chris's point, so we need some token to give rewards, and we can choose the token we want. But an example of a token and a project where there is no pool, all of a sudden there's a reward, and so in this case, DXDAO is going to initiate that reward, and it's going to create a liquid pool from zero to become a liquid pool. And then all of a sudden people start trading that pool, it starts generating fees. That is that creates a case study for how other projects can do that with their own tokens, right? And in this case, yes, DXDAO, it's going to be a cost for DXDAO, but it's a cost that's worth it, because it's setting an example of how you can kick off your own pools using Swapper farming from zero to something, and then we make a case study out of that. And then we show that to other projects, and then other projects can do the same thing with their own tokens. So, yeah. So just to jump over to Omen World now. So to start, there's a proposal for the Omen Markets competition to source good markets. There were some questions of people asking, like, should we wait for Omen token and Omen guild before doing like a competition? Because maybe we get all these good markets, but we're missing that piece. And like, so I think in general, we can, even without Omen token and Omen guild, like it's good to have good markets on Omen. DXDAO has money that's already been set aside to fund some of these markets, to create like an experience that like the average user can bet on a bunch of cool markets. And some of, if we do lose a little bit of money, maybe it's a marketing expense, but yeah, that's happened in the past. We can do that again. And then like when Omen and Omen Guild come, we can always do like a whole nother ramped up version of another competition, and we can, really like juice things up with Omen token and Omen Guild as well. And so that proposal's live, and it has new dates. Like the process, the dates got messed up on the first one because the proposal takes 8 days to pass. So we readjusted the dates, and hopefully this competition will still be a success and get a lot of good markets. And then separately, there was some talk about like strategic market around the flippening, and that's what I'd like to just like gauge support for right now. But a few of us think that like a couple different markets, maybe a handful of different markets around ETH flippening Bitcoin is a topic that the whole community will be really excited about, will be into, has the potential to really get the attention of the greater, like maybe even Bitcoin crowd as well, and draw people into Omen. These markets are tricky because they are probably not ideal like markets in terms of LPing, but something like, will ETH market cap be above Bitcoin market cap at the end of 2022, right? So that's obviously it's longer term. It's not like will ETH flip in Bitcoin at any time, because that's even riskier, but like will it be flipping at a certain time in the future is less risky, but it could still go one direction. I'd say that these markets in general are like right way trades for DXDAO. So if ETH does flip in, so even if we put a bunch of liquidity into this market and ETH does flip in Bitcoin, even we like as LPs, DXDAO could lose a bunch of money. But if ETH does flip in Bitcoin, chances are like DXDAO treasury is doing really well. So in the traditional finance world, you call that like a right way trade. And so I think that this like a sizable amount of liquidity, like Gnosis had been doing with some Omen markets in the early days, and this could be on XDAI and on mainnet, like I'm like 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 grand like into a few of these markets to really make them like sizable and liquid would be probably the ideal path to take, so that like it could really get the attention of big people that want to put a bunch of money behind it, and we can monitor it and even put more money into it. But with that is going to come a sizable amount of risk as an LP, and maybe other people will put money in as LPs as well. But this would be a decision that like, you know, it would be good to have the support of DXDAO community before like creating these markets and maybe asking for another 40 grand or something of like liquidity from DXDAO to like put specifically into these like a couple flippening markets. I'm interested to hear people's thoughts on that.
What about a scalar market for the ETH BTC ratio? You could have shorter time frame for that as well, I think.
Yeah, so it's not a flippening market, but it's just like a market on the ratio, like over time.
It's more general than a flippening market, but it's sort of like is also an implied flippening market, right?
Do we have any data from when these large sums were put in previously, kind of success rates on previous markets? Why I'm asking is because since we're planning the Omen Guild liquidity rewards plan, we could also kind of, you know, test some stuff out here to see how things respond with the amount of liquidity that we're putting into a market once we actually do the voting process for the liquidity rewards for the guild as well. I know we don't have like a farming program yet, but just to see how things go, kind of with like when we actually put money into on our side, how like it actually tracks trade and stuff like that.
Yeah, so data around Omen markets becomes tricky. Like you could look at the Gnosis markets that they had put like 50K into liquidity, like a bunch in the early days of Omen on mainnet when gas was cheaper. And what's tricky is some of them traded a whole bunch and probably earned a bunch of fees for Gnosis, and some of them didn't trade at all. And so it doesn't, the amount of liquidity that's in the market doesn't determine how active that market is really. But what we do know is markets that are getting popularity and active, like after the election happened and the Trump market was still being traded, more people put more liquidity into that market, and it was earning attractive fees, and people kept trading it because people were taking what I would say were irrational views, but it actually earned a lot of fees. And so almost putting more, like loading, like re-upping capital into markets that already are already popular and like lots of people are trading is like one strategy, versus like dumping the bunch of liquidity in and then hoping that people trade it. And then like how the market moves, how it ends, where it moves along the path of the market, like are all very specific and dependent and affect how the experience of LPing that market is. So like every single market's a one-off, its own like use case. So it's like hard to get general data. It's like more one-off observations. So unfortunately, I don't have a better answer than that from my experience. Maybe other people have some other views.
So during today's meeting of the MISA team, Martin and I were discussing, we're preparing the MVP, but for future versions, we thought of using conditional tokens because as a part of the MVP, MISA will have the fixed token sale. And a way we could use conditional tokens is that the more people buy in on the fixed sale, the cheaper the token price gets. And we could also tie in providing liquidity on Swapper to get even a better deal on top of that. So we could do something similar with Almond, and the more liquidity that the Almond platform sees, the better the deal with the Almond token somehow. So we should really think about this conditional token framework in the way Almond works, because I think it's the best feature.
Yeah, so Federico is diving into he's building and what we actually need to get like a minimal viable product for what conditional token farming will open up. And agree with you, Nathan, that like in general, KPI tokens, especially if we have it in a cheap, efficient way, for DXDAO to use itself, and then also for other projects to see that and use it for their own use cases. And there's talk with like Agave and maybe some other OneHive related projects that would like to use the idea of KPI / conditional farming tokens. It's a great, and anyone that's followed UMA KPI tokens, like it is a tension capturing like dynamic, and whether or not it actually leads to results is like still yet to be determined. But it's really cool to be able to create incentives in a permissionless way that will drive communities to do certain things, right? And it takes investment from a project who's willing to spend that money to make those things happen. But it's a really cool use case of token economics and crypto and tokens, right? And so once we have that figured out, which is like kind of we need to build it for what DXDAO needs, and that's what Federico is working on. And you have like an example of what you can do with it and how it works and how it's easy. I think there are huge business opportunities and partnership opportunities to then go out and attract projects to use that platform and that technology that DXDAO is using itself. And so that will be really interesting. We just need to get it first we need to dog food it ourselves, I think, just like a lot of our products and our projects, the things that we're making. And then we can like showcase that out to like a whole bunch of projects, and they can apply it to their necessary use cases. But it's super cool, and I think it will get a lot of attention. Federico, I don't know if you wanted to say anything about what you maybe give us a little update to people.
Yeah, so I've just started working on it last week. I mean, as of now, I don't want to give like any major update or anything. It's just that I'm working on it. I'm working on the contracts and the front end too. And as soon as I have like a usable thing, even to just test it out, I'll be I'll tell you guys, and we can talk about it more. So nothing to say really too much right now.
I see a lot of TikTok effect potential here, because TikTokers, what they do is they do short squeezes, but then once they reach an all-time high, they're wondering, well, who's going to rug pull on us right now? So, and we don't have this risk here because it's a really decentralized tokenomics model, and there are a lot of incentives further up you go. So I think there's a lot of potential to incentivize the crowd in a good way, like achieve that TikTok effect with the conditional token model. So we should definitely pursue this. If Federico, if you need any help, like we could maybe have separate chats about it and brainstorm.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and then so a lot of times DX Ventures topics have been a part of this Monday call. Sometimes useful, sometimes less useful. In general, if DX Ventures is going to be kind of like part of this, of the DXbiz like area of DXDAO, at least because it's not a full-time focus for anyone at this point. Tammy's done a lot of work. She's like, a lot of legal stuff it's important. I've like shepherded projects through DX Ventures, but like anyone in DXDAO can look out for and present opportunities to DX Ventures. There is a general consensus that like, ideally we don't like just invite any random projects to like come present at DXDAO. I've said a number of times in the past, like any project that is going to show up to this call, whether it's DX Ventures related or like a partnership opportunity, there should be like a detailed forum post with like why it's relevant to DXDAO, why it benefits the project and DXDAO, who's like going to be the main point of contact for that project. And like those questions and answers should already be taking place in the forum in an asynchronous way, so that when that project comes to this call to present to the greater public crowd, it's already like very clear what the point of it is, right? And we've had scenarios where that hasn't happened in the past, and then it's just kind of a waste of people's times. And so that process of curating the speakers that come to this call, but really like all the pre-work that needs to be done before that, is really important. And it's not just on like 1 or 2 or 3 people here to like do that job. It's like, it's the job of everyone that's a member of DXDAO to like, if you think there's a good opportunity for DXDAO or for DX Ventures, it's your job to concisely and clearly summarize and explain what that value is, and to the community in the forum before like inviting a person to come like present what more details about that project. So that's a general consensus that's come about. And if anyone has any different thoughts or additional thoughts on that, like, please share them.
I think it's not like a full-blown venture fund. Obviously, it's like a small, tailored, kind of lightweight thing that's set up within DXDAO. So I think a good rule of thumb is it should be solving a pain point directly for DXDAO. Like we should be willing to use this product and wanting to use this product today, right? And I think that's just, and I think the job for those who are kind of like stewarding DX Ventures is to check some of these boxes, do some general due diligence. I think Tammy and Sky have been doing a great job with this, but like, yeah, obviously we don't have like the bandwidth for this to be like this robust like venture fund, right? It's really meant to kind of augment and support some of the things we're already doing. So just keep that in mind as you're like, thinking about presenting projects, but by all means, like bring things to DXDAO if they seem relevant.
Yeah. So I don't like what I've outlined about like what this Monday call could become, where there's like more curated presentations if appropriate. There's a kind of a presentation of the DXbiz team's like conclusions of the highest priority opportunities that are happening that week that need feedback and input from the wider group. After like that group's been working on like the details of those opportunities like throughout the week. New member introductions, which is still good. It's a great place for people to come for the first time. And then like very product specific ideas for like growing usage and awareness of DXDAO's products, such as like Federico working on conditional farming and how that could be used across the space. So that's like kind of what this Monday call, I guess, would become for now.
And just on that, maybe there's like, it's not exactly user, like maybe a place for users to come and like give feedback. That's probably not appropriate, but it is like maybe as we have different, things going on with Swapper and Omen, it could have some ideas from the community on how to improve things, or I don't know, thinking about other ways to introduce some community input.
So that's a good point. So throughout each week, we get feedback sometimes through Discord and channels from users, right? And so we need a good way to absorb. A lot of times it might be like product specific feedback or whatever, but there could be ideas from users and stuff. So like DXDAO absorbing user feedback and ideas from the community, like tracking those in some way, which I think Keenan does a pretty good job of like reporting, like when people have ideas and complaints and user feedback in the social channels. So like reporting things about what we learned and what changes we might make because of those would be a good topic for this call as well, which would, I don't know, Keenan, if you like if you write these things down somewhere, like my concern is they get lost and they don't get to the right product teams, and if they're business related, they get forgotten about. So we can put them onto like the tracking sheet if they're business related, but some will be product specific as well.
Yeah, I think I'm cutting out a little bit here, but the idea is community feedback and kind of having a pipeline of getting it to the right team.
Yeah, and if this call, I mean, if it's like something specific about a product, it might not be for this call, but if it's from the community about like a new idea that could be good for DXDAO, it's worth like mentioning on this call and discussing probably.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great idea.
Cool. And so is there anything else that people are thinking about for product ideas or business opportunities. Well, there's another example would be doing things related to DXDAO's products that bring in other communities. And so we've talked about, one example would be Rye. Rye is a stable token, pretty interesting project, a cool community. And there was like a word in Discord channel or something that like they've been waiting for Rye to be on Augur so that like they could bet using Rye on Augur. And like, okay, maybe that was one guy, maybe their community is excited about that, but there is an opportunity to put Rye on Omen, for example, as a collateral that people in that community could bet on markets using Rye as the collateral. And so in general, there's like that opened a discussion on should Omen focus on like a highly curated user experience where like XDAI is the main collateral and most of the markets are just using XDAI, or should Omen remain open and permissionless and very welcoming to many different types of collateral? And then that would include like you could make markets in one of 20 different tokens or whatever, which clutters the user experience, but stays in line with what Omen as a like permissionless, decentralized prediction market platform kind of like, yeah, the initial idea of it. So if people favor one or the other, it would be good to hear.
So what this made me think of is Twilio, because Twilio has a service, but then on top of Twilio, you have all these companies which use it, and they kind of brand it themselves. And Mirror Protocol is doing something similar. So if Omen could be basically the base layer, and then if there's some way to maybe incentivize other protocols to build their own user interfaces for it, that could be a move.
There's a certain risk potential with that. I'm not opposed to the idea of being, fully permissionless and allowing lots of, tokens, but it will be difficult for the user interface, making it user friendly and safe. So I'm not opposed to it. It's probably something to consider further down the line when we have more resource to work on the user interface, because it would have to be made clear to users to be careful and maybe separate major and more safer options with some sketchy ones that someone has put on to scam people. So we got to be careful in the beginning. And yeah,
Nathan, that's a good point. So DXDAO, so on XDAI, actually controls the token list of collateral tokens that are on Omen. And so up till now on XDAI, it's only been XDAI and Stake, which we did Stake for the Stake community who specifically asked for it. And so it's not like not anyone can just add. Anyone can ask to add a token, but not anyone can just add a token as collateral. It has to be curated. It has to be approved by DXDAO through proposal. So if we have a list of interesting tokens such as Rye and maybe there's a handful of other ones, and WEF and any token, if you want to do an impact market, you need that token on there as well. So WBTC would be a good one if we wanted to have the flippening market in XDAI, in WEF, and WBTC. So those, I just named 3 tokens right there. DXDAO can decide to add those 3 tokens as collateral into Omen, and yes, that makes the experience of more tokens maybe more confusing on Omen, but it opens up all of the opportunities that having multi-collateral tokens on Omen does. So it's never going to be like fully open and wild where people can just randomly add tokens. But do people in general think it's okay to add the additional relevant tokens that could be used for markets as collateral?
Yeah, so Omen had multiple tokens already which have not been used at all. Someone could argue Omen wasn't used much in general because of mainnet. So I think XDAI allows us to potentially see more traction with other tokens. Where I think it should be a requirement for like a new token to have first liquidity on Swapper, which like I see like scenarios where people actually have most of their money in Omen with stable coins, because it's like bettors don't like to have like double exposures. But we should allow bettors to actually like use DAI and buy into stake and then bet if they actually want to, right? So as long as there is liquidity on Swapper for a specific token, I think that should be like one of the main requirements for a new token listing, is that they should have at least some decent liquidity on Swapper to get listed. And with that, like people don't need to like think, oh, I need to bridge stake from mainnet and pay $60 just to like bet on a market, but rather like already use DAI on Omen and just like purchase stake through our interface.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the way to go. I believe it's a great feature to have, and I think this will help us onboard more users easily.
Yep, it will help us. Like it will help Omen and it will help Swapper. So it's like a double.
Yep. Because also, you know, when you create a market and if someone wants, if we allow anyone to use any token, and I mean, yeah, they have to put a proposal first, but if we somehow accept some unpopular one and then someone uses it to create a market, but then there are not enough people that have it that are willing to bet on that market, then it makes it, if there's not enough liquidity on Swapper, then it wouldn't bring users to Amen, so it doesn't make sense. I wanted to ask Chris, I read the proposal to increase liquidity on mainnet for swapper pools, and I was wondering, would that affect somehow the farming rewards? Shall we do any edits on those as well, or?
Why would it affect the farming rewards?
No, because when you add liquidity and volume doesn't increase, it doesn't help, you know, DXD token holders. You know, you kind of like dilute their rewards, like because they're entitled to 10% of revenue that the platform generates, but when you add liquidity and then there isn't enough people trading, that there's not volume that's being generated to extract fees from action, then it's pretty much diluting them and it kind of like diminishes their earnings. So I'm wondering whether adding liquidity on its own would attract and increase volume, or whether we should also think of increasing rewards as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should do both. I think having a farming campaign is important. I think we should concentrate on the DXD ETH pools. I also think we should also move additional liquidity into the ETH DAI pair and maybe a DAI USDC pair, just to entice some traders to, when they're using Swapper, that there's a good experience because there's a lot of liquidity. So I think that would be very helpful for driving volume, in addition to the farming campaigns, which will attract liquidity providers.
Yeah, I like the idea a lot. No, DXDAO is in an amazing position. Looking at the feedback we're getting on social media channels, the only criticism we've got is that we're too conservative with the treasury. So, and we're improving on that. So I think this is the way to go.
Yeah, another interesting, like, thinking back about like this KPI, like incentive building block. This is how John is calling it. We could use that also, like, to actually unlock, like, being listed on Omen, right? Like having a KPI as like, will Swapper have like a pool of stake tokens with at least 50K of liquidity? And yeah, so the community can actually gather support to get listed on Omen and like potentially even get stake rewards or whatever. So we have those like nice tools we can use to bootstrap our products. It's pretty cool.
And also, I've been thinking, how are we conducting the burns for the buyback? Are we going to conduct the like wait for the full 1 million buyback to complete and then start the burning? Can we start the burning in the midst of doing the buyback? I think this will help gauge how things are moving with, finding a fair price for the token.
I don't
So I
think we
don't think
have
there's a
any-
burn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, not immediate. No immediate plans of a burn. There's just going to be some holding and allocation for Swapper currently for this particular plan.
I think Nathan probably signals like John's proposal about like the future of DXD token.
Sure, right.
Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, John's proposal is not ratified by the DXO yet. I mean, I think it will take a while for us to even buy back the 1 mil ratification. So I think it will confuse if we do both at the same time. So let's just buy back the 1 mil first and then like get the big gun out. If
Cool. I think you got cut off for other people too, right? Anyway, we're at the top of the hour. I hope this was a useful call, and maybe we can evaluate and give feedback on whether or not this is a good format and things, and improve it going forward. So everyone, thanks for joining.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good one.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good one.
Bye, guys.